Hi, Jason Knott, editor of CE Pro, and today we are talking about the power of software and the future of software with Kenny Kim, Vice President of Platform and Services at Snap One. Hi, Kenny.
Hey, Jason.
One of the most profound software developments for the industry, certainly over the last 10 years, was the development of OvrC by Snap One. Can you just give us a little bit of a sense as to the functionality of that and how it helps an integrator?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've evolved quite a bit. Oversea was launched 7 years ago, and it really started out as a tool that would help a partner and integrator to um, not have to roll a truck to service the customers. Being able to access information, access status, the ability to reboot those devices remotely. And since then, it's evolved quite a bit. A lot more troubleshooting capabilities, such as doing network testing, being able to tunnel into devices to access specific services and information about to understand the health of those devices. We've also evolved into more of a configuration tool so that an integrator could modify the configuration even remotely so they don't have to roll out a truck. And this is important for things that are dynamically changing. So a customer wants to change a password or on their Wi-Fi, they want to add a guest network. And so our partners are able to do that remotely. There also is a really important capability to updating firmware. And that is becoming even more important as we get more and more type of cybersecurity vulnerabilities out there. And as we patch devices, it's important that we keep these devices up to date with the latest software and latest patches. And so those are the capabilities of OvrC. And the last piece we extended on was OvrC Home. And so OvrC Home is gives our integrators an ability to extend a piece of OvrC to the homeowner, the end customer. And the end customer is able to reboot, is able to troubleshoot basic things remotely at their disposal. And you just empower them to do that so that one, it has an immediate opportunity to solve those problems in a lot of cases. And if they can't solve it, then they can still reach out to their integrator.
Now, one of the other unique things about OvrC is that it's not just dedicated to the Snap One brands, it reaches out to other brands. Give us a sense of some of those other brands that it can, as you say, dig deep and look at the status of the devices with.
Yeah, several years into OvrC, we made a pivot. It was originally designed for the products that we sell, our brands, Arachnus, Swapbox, Luma, and the other brands that we sell and we develop. But at one point, we thought about how can we not create a remote support tool, not only for our products, but for our industry. And if we wanted to do that, we had to be agnostic. We had to support all types of products, even our competitive products, so our partners could be successful. We want this to be the standard tool. And so once we made that pivot, we launched OvrC Pro. And leveraging OvrC Pro, we took a slightly different approach with some of the incumbents already in the market. We, number one, wanted to access as many devices as quickly as we can. So we focus on different type of standard protocols. You think about SNMP for networking products, OnVIT for surveillance products, PJ-Link for projectors that are on the network. Those things would enable you to get access to features and data about a ton of devices all at once. So we started with the standard protocols, and then we said, okay, what's left? What are the products and brands that our partners really care about, and they need to access deeper levels of information, deeper controls remotely. And so we support a ton of different brands. It's on our website and it's constantly being updated. But things that really popular devices like a bunch of AVRs. So Denon and Marantz, Yamaha, Pioneer. We have very specific bespoke integrations with these guys where you can change the input output switching. You can get device information. You can even control the zones. We have power products like Panamax and Surgex that's integrated. We got media players like Roku, different type of lighting products, Lutron, Philips Hue, LifeX, at Lona for matrix switchers, a bunch of different TVs, and the ability to be able to control and manage those TVs remotely. as well as different control brands like Crestron and URC. We have different integrations with them. So we're trying to hit a broad base of products based on what our partners need to be successful.
So software is such a dynamic situation. You mentioned about firmware updates and cybersecurity attacks and all these things that are happening in the space. Tell us about how some of the advancements in artificial intelligence, microprocessing, and the cloud will help make smart homes even smarter.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. AI is enabling us to, in the most general sense, recognize and understand patterns with all the data of how the product's being used, how the product is operating, and it's not this unachievable technology. It is actually very open source. It's available to pretty much everybody. And so, and the advancements in AI, especially with the automated driving type of trends out there, it's very mature. And so, what I think about AI in our space is really the trends in that space have democratized technology. It gives everyone the ability to incorporate some of these AI capabilities into our product. And what does it mean? What's the value to our customers and our partners? I think when I think about the systems in our industry, the we call smart home systems, to me, it's not really that smart. It still has to be extremely, it's very manual to really customize it and tailor it for the customer, and that has to be managed over time. It takes a manual intervention. When I think about smart, or when I think about what AI could do in our space, is that it can learn the patterns of our lives. It can learn the patterns of what our needs are and how that's changing dynamically over time, and learn and adapt to us without having the need to have a very manual intervention by the partner, which is going to deliver much better experiences, higher engagement for the end customers, less touch required by the partner to manage that over time. And so I think it has a lot of use cases to really make our systems smarter and more tailored for our customers.
And it sounds like it crosses so many different devices. It can be, as you mentioned, the surveillance system. It can be the thermostat. It can be the lighting system. All these things communicating with each other to identify those patterns in the homeowner and make it even, as you say, an even more seamless environment, and make them be, I think, even more enamored and more, I would say reliant isn't maybe the right word, but really in touch with their smart home, versus just something they turn on and off when they come in and turn the alarm system off when they walk in the door or something.
Absolutely. And we're in a unique place because if you look at the average number of IP devices in our customers' home, our market segment homes, it's 100 plus IP devices. That's not typical for a normal home. And so when I think about any IP enabled device, you almost have to think about it as a sensor. And they're all producing data, input, and output. And so our industry has all those tapped into a single system, which is the control system. And so by being able to leverage what we already have as our foundation, I think we are most uniquely positioned to leverage AI to really enhance the experience that our customers have with their systems.
So what investments can you tell us about that Snap One is making in these areas?
Yeah, there's obviously in a number of these areas we're heavily investing in. So I mean, a wide area, you have to invest in all fronts. So one, with our hardware that we have today, that we sell and we manufacture, where as we refresh our products, we're refreshing with the latest processors that are oftentimes a lot smarter, a lot more powerful, that can produce and process a lot more data. So that gives us a better foundation. The software that we're putting in our devices, we're making it smarter and smarter, where all these products are now talking to OvrC Pro technology, where it's scanning the network. It's understanding a lot more about other adjacent devices are being put into more devices. We put that in controllers. We launched that this year. We're putting in all of our routers, and we're extending it beyond other devices in the future. In terms of to make sure that we have the foundation to be able to truly create a solution, we have to make sure these devices that are being put into the home is interoperable to each other. They have to talk to each other. They have to understand each other. And so that's where we're heavily investing in our interoperability program. So things like our drivers and working with the driver developers to make sure that they have the capabilities that they need to make sure that they're tightly integrated to our ecosystem. Since the merger, we've also been focused around, we have these two really big platforms. We have OvrC and we have Control4. How do we leverage both of these platforms together so that we can fully leverage the data that's been generated by both? And so you saw some of those investments that we've made in launching, Oversea Pro in our controller line. Other areas, we're investing in our OvrC, and that's growing quite a bit exponentially. And we have to, as it grows, we have to constantly think about re-platforming, understanding the latest technologies out there, understanding how do we take all of this data that comes into our infrastructure and to efficiently process it in a way where it can then deliver value back. And there's some other non-obvious areas we have to be investing as we do all of this. How do we best handle privacy and security? Dealing with so much data that's coming from all these different devices, it's going to be very critical that we protect this data, make sure it goes through all the protections that it needs. It's secure, it's private, it's owned by the end customer. And so these are things that we're investing in. We're constantly looking at how do we make this protected as we develop these features that benefit from the data.
And from the integrator perspective, all this intelligence that you're bringing to the products and through the software, it's allowing them to become the go-to resource for the customer, but at the same time, they don't have to be a computer scientist to know how to integrate all this. Really, the software is doing a lot of it for them, right? So they shouldn't feel intimidated by these advancements.
Yeah, I think our industry needs to look at this as an enabler. When I talk to partners, even the most savvy, advanced partners talk about, when I first install the system and deliver it to my customer, they don't necessarily know what they want from their system. They never lived with it. They don't know the use cases that's meaningful for them. They only realize that after living with it for 6 to 12 months, it's like, oh, these are the use cases. And those use cases might change over time. And so and today, what it requires to constantly personalize and tailor to those needs, a partner is required to constantly modify the programming, modify the configurations so that it's adapted to the use case. But all that could be improved if the system understands it itself and evolves. That produces happier customers. That means less burden on the partner. And so I think this is it's an accelerator for our industry.
All right, one last thing. If an integrator wants to really up his education in terms of OvrC and what it can do for him, what should he do? Who should he contact? Where should he go?
Yeah, if he goes to our website, snap1.com, there are a ton of education materials that we created that anybody could educate themselves around OvrC and the capabilities of OvrC. We have webinars, we have training modules that they can take. On top of that, I think really the easiest way and the best way is for you to just get a few OvrC enabled products in your home, starting with the Oversea Pro Hub probably, and just experience it yourself. It's really easy to use, doesn't take any cost other than the hardware investment. I'm sure the sales team could help you with getting some of those devices for you to try out. So yeah, experience it yourself. Go to our website to do more learnings. And then if you have any other questions beyond that, reach out to our product teams. We're happy to help. Our support teams are also very happy to help.